Hey everybody, welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the good folks over at, we got a new advertiser. We got Trophy Smack joining us. Welcome to Trophy Smack. Welcome. Thank you to Dabble. Thank you to Chalkboard. I'm Jeff Erickson here with Joe Bartel, and we had a momentous Joe, week 11. Lots of stuff going on there. And we're going to just rip through a bunch of these there. Lots of big news items, lots of significant players hurt. Let's jump right into it, though. We're starting with the Rams and Seahawks, because I didn't give you the chance today on SiriusXM to talk about this game. Biggest game on the slate, really. I think, one of three huge games, at least. And a big result. We'll see the rematch in a couple of weeks, but enjoyable game, even if it wasn't the shootout we were kind of hoping for.
Yeah, I think it actually ended up going mostly the way I assumed it would. I think we actually talked about it a little bit last Tuesday when I was on the show, because we had kind of referenced that the prior week was not very good. It was set up for week 11 here to be something really interesting, especially with Chiefs, Broncos, and Rams, Seahawks. Now, I will admit I did not end up getting to watch the entirety of this game. I was driving to pick up my son, who had stayed at the grandparents over the weekend, but I had it on in the car, and I'm like, I'm not driving and watching, but I'm hearing the broadcasters as much as we could talk about it. And there was a point in that game where I'm like, all right, yeah, so the Rams won. Let's go ahead and try to find something else. I wanted to see if I could catch Chiefs Denver at some point. And then I tuned back in. I'm like, wait, they can hit a last second field goal to win this. And
I know
that was the punt dot as well, too, from the Rams that probably allows them to be in this. And Myers has to kick a ridiculous one. I had Myers in a bunch of different fantasy leagues. So I was kind of rooting for it. But to me, the answer was going to be whatever team ends up winning, we're going to overreact to it. Now, I haven't seen a lot from the national perspective about the Rams, but it was confirmation bias about Matthew Stafford as the MVP favorite after this win. He didn't play all that great, but more importantly, Sam Darnold was once again horrendous against this Rams defense. And I will contend that when these two teams face each other again in Seattle in a couple weeks, it'll be the Seahawks winning the same thing, and we're going to be back with like, oh, so this really didn't really matter at all. And I think that's kind of what these two teams are. I think the Rams are, if they are not the best team in the NFC, they are one of the best teams. Right. They are led by their defense. They have an explosive enough offense, and they don't make a lot of mistakes. And also, Jeff, they're not really injured. I think that's one of the things that goes underreported with this conversation is like there's only two guys on injured reserve for the Rams currently. It's just crazy the injury luck they've had relative to the rest of the league. And the Seahawks, same sort of way, that they have explosive play capability, that Sam Darnold, when he's on, has been one of the better quarterbacks of the league. It's just a matter of, does he get rattled every single time against the Rams? Does he get rattled only in big games? Will this be replicable in the postseason? And while we have confirmation Matthew Stafford can do that when the Rams win the Super Bowl, we have yet to see Sam Darnold be that level of quarterback. I hate win-loss quarterback record as if that matters at all for the actual quarterback itself. I mean, my quarterback is Aaron Rodgers, right? So I think I'm the one that deals with this the most, but that Rodgers only won one Super Bowl is not because Rodgers is not one of the best quarterbacks of all time. It's horrendous special teams or bad defense or whatever else. I do put a lot of this on Sam Darnold, though, that the Seahawks probably are in a better spot if they don't throw, half of those interceptions. You could still win that game even with 2 picks. So I would be very nervous if I was a Seahawks fan come the postseason, but I was nervous before last week as well. And this outcome against the Rams really didn't change anything for me.
There was that might have been the most pressured game with 0 sacks that I've seen.
Oh, yes. Good. Yeah.
Because he seemed like he was under pressure constantly, and that's what led to at least 2 of those interceptions of the 4. But you know what? They also, the Rams also kind of took Seattle out of the run game, although the Seahawks tend to do that to themselves. I think 2 other things came into play here, at least on the Seattle side offensively. One, offensive line injuries. The fact that they had a new center in there, got hurt the week before in the blowout of Arizona. I think we always overlook when a stud offensive lineman, and especially a center, is out.
Oh, yeah.
You call last week, it was 35-0 when the Seahawks were ahead, and they started turning it over. There's some shaky snaps. There's just, they were out, they were sloppy in that game against Arizona. That might have been a portent for what we should have expected here in this game against the Rams. You go back to last year, remember same offensive coordinator, Kubiak was really good with the Saints those first 2 games last year. You remember that? And then game 3 was the Eagles, and the Eagles had a lot to do with this, but they also lost their center, Eric McCoy, in that game. And it was just an immediate shutdown from that point on. I say losing your center, especially on short notice, is just, it's brutal for a team. They also lost Gray Zabel later on in the game, but that was in the second half. the other thing too is I still think they need that reliable second pass catcher. You know, JSN still got his 9 for 105. That on 12 targets. Here's an idea: just force him more targets. I don't know. Shaquille very little. Cooper Kupp had 3 catches. They were all late and they were of little consequence. You know, they need that second pass catcher. AJ Barner isn't it. He had a lot of targets, and he's fine. He's what he is. They need another downfield threat, I think, against a good team like them.
Well, and it's interesting you mentioned the Eagles from last year. And it's just another really good defensive line. And I think maybe in this conversation it is less to do about the offensive line injuries, although I agree with you, Jeff, that that's a key piece. But just we're not acknowledging how good the Rams pass rush is. And I think specifically with the stunts that they do up front, it really has been messing with the timing. And I think getting in the face of Sam Darnold, even if you're not directly hitting him, making him see you. I'm not doing the see ghost joke, but like making Sam Darnold see the defender in front of him, I think has been a key part of why the Rams have been successful against both the Vikings last year and this year too. And I would agree with you in the Seahawks offense as well. But we knew this entering the season that JSN would have to emerge to be one of the best receivers in the league for the Seahawks offense to be functioning. What we didn't realize is the Seahawks offense to be one of the best in the league because JSN gets that level. I think against really good teams, you can really expose that outside of it. And even if JSN gets his stuff, I do the waiver wire article for us every week on RotoWire. It'll be updated later today after this podcast is out. And one of the comments was like, I don't know if they meant to be saying snarky, but it was snarky. Like, wow, AJ Barner, pretty big omission not have him in there this week. And I'm like, well, the 11 targets when he had a combined 13 over the prior 4 weeks has a lot to do with, I think, the Rams defense. And I don't think the Rams defense is who Sam Darnold's facing week in and week out here. So like, I don't think AJ Barner is going to elevate to be a second pass catcher anytime soon. They might need to have that sort of role. I think they would have loved that to be Cooper Kupp, especially from the intermediate level. But if they can't generate that, I do think you're going to see the Seahawks just in these types of games against better opponents really struggle.
Yeah, I think you're right. This is also on the road. You know, they may win home field advantage, and the NFC West is wide open as far as that goes. That can still happen. They also were missing Torrey Horton in this game. I think that does matter a little bit in terms of having someone that can take the top off, someone that they actually have to account for. He may just be running. He might be doing cardio.
Isn't that Shaheed though? I mean, that's what Shaheed's supposed to be doing for that offense too.
That's true. He should be. I guess you're right about that. Maybe they need to, threaten that cardio a little bit more often. Only one of those 4 interceptions were intended for JSN. There's 1 to Kupp and 2 to Arroyo of all people. Right. So for whatever that's worth. On the other side of the ball, this was not a great game for Matthew Stafford. This was not a great game for the Rams offense. They got that 14-3 lead early, and they didn't score again until the fourth quarter.
And required 7 fourth down, or sorry, I think it's 7 attempts at the 1 or 2 yard line to begin the game as well. I mean, that was
3 in a row by Corum. That was comical.
Yeah, and then Kyron punched in actually for the touchdown. That was McVay, I think, kind of acknowledging the stakes of the game. And if anyone follows the history of McVay, sometimes in those moments, I think often, maybe this is one of the only few warts on his coaching tree is that, or his resume, is that when the moments are high, I think he turtles up just a little bit. Now, going for those 4th downs, I thought that was playing with house money anyway after the interception and things like that. But you would like to see McVay be a bit more aggressive.
Agreed.
And I don't know if that was not trying to show things for the later matchup against the Seahawks, or if that was simply acknowledging how good this defense has been. Maybe it is the latter. And if that's the case, I go back to, I think the Seahawks win when they face each other again in a couple weeks in Seattle.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, 0 sacks for either team in this game. Very bonkers. To see a QB rating of 32 for Darnold and 45.4 for Stafford. The QBRs, that is. The rating is a little higher. There's 2 different rating stats you can use over on the ESPN box scores, at least. So that's something worth noting there. Yeah, but fun. I feel good about both of these franchises. I still think they are inner circle of the better teams in the NFC West, and top 10 teams in the NFL. Definitely chance to win the Super Bowl this year for both of these teams. Neither of them are disqualified in my eyes.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. I think we did this exercise last week. I feel much better naming the top 6 teams that could be Super Bowl contenders from the AFC and NFC. And I feel a lot better naming the top 8, or sorry, the top 10 teams. It's trying to pick the top 8 is tough, but I think you would include both the Rams and Seahawks in that conversation, even after this week for sure.
Yep. And the Niners are probably going to make the playoffs too after this one. We'll talk about that coming up here, but they've got the banked wins. That in and of itself, and the schedule. They may not be the best in that discussion among the teams that, given all their injuries. You want to talk about injury luck. The Niners got a story to tell you about that from the last 2 years for sure. Let's move on because we got a ton of stuff to cover. Let's talk a little bit about the Lions. 0 for 5 on fourth down. Should have been 0 for 7. At least they should have tried 2 more times. This was an interesting result. I think they just got so fatigued of not making on fourth down and so hopeless that by the time it got to around to the fourth quarter and they're down 2 scores, they actually punted it away twice. Once with like 5 minutes left. Once a little bit more time, but both times down 10 points in the fourth quarter. Earlier, they should have taken points, but they punted away down 10 with 5 minutes left. I just didn't see it. I don't care if it's 4th and 10. You got to go for it there.
This is something that you would do earlier in the game. I'd agree at that juncture. What does it really matter with how stifling the defense of the Eagles have been? If you can just generate any fourth down conversion, maybe the wins change. I wonder if there is a mental thing if you are the offense, having not converted that many times in the course of a game, where it's almost like you turtle up. You don't want to be in that position anymore. And these are NFL players, but like, I think from a human perspective, I know what that emotion is, and I know what normally triggers that emotion. And I think repeatedly failing in really difficult situations and then having the opportunity to do it again and failing again in the sequence or consequence like that I feel it just piles up mentally, and I don't know how to factor that in. I know the next gen data will always point to like, oh, it's a 4th and 3, you just got to go for it, right? Like that's the era we're in, and I largely agree with it. But there probably is a point where too many mental body blows like that, where you just didn't execute, or Goff didn't make quite the great throw, or Jalen Carter blows up one of these plays and therefore it was never going to be converted. Like, after a certain point of that all layering on top of each other, that would build up to me in a really important game like this for the Lions. And I wonder if that kind of had some calluses by the end of it.
Yeah, I think so for sure. I think this interior offensive line for the Lions is not generating a lot of push, and that's why a lot of these short runs are failing. Gibbs got stoned on that 4th and 1 early in the game, as an example. They don't go to David Montgomery for those that much anymore. I thought that noteworthy too.
Yeah, and I don't know, no Sam Laporta in this game. We'll have to see of consequence with the back injury now on injured reserve, how that stacks up. Because Laporta is a really good receiving threat, but I think he's underrated in terms of blocking, especially for the other options they have. Like, is Laporta a better blocker than Brock Wright? I know Brock Wright is a good blocker, but that you have Sam Laporta as a receiving threat, and Brock Wright can be able to be a blocker too, like in those 12 personnel sets. It'll be really interesting to see, and they're going to have some tough run defenses coming up over the next couple of weeks that will be testing that a little bit further. Like, I happen to think the Lions will probably do okay against the Packers on Thursday of Thanksgiving, but that would be one where you'd love to have Sam Laporta's flexibility offensively, what he gives you. And maybe that was another part of missing him against the Eagles. I mean, we saw with Tucker Kraft and the Packers just 2 weeks ago what that absence was. And I think Sam Laporta is kind of on that level of what he means to that offense. And I think it was very clear on Sunday night that the Lions missed him for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. They missed him. They missed Frank Ragnow a ton. I think that was just kind of a linchpin guy. Both teams featured offensive lines that are not the same as they were last year. I think you can see a lot of the Eagles' issues, and both teams are replacing their offensive coordinators too. And I think in both cases that matters a lot. The lack of continuity. It matters obviously to the Lions because Dan Campbell took over play calling duties. I guess nobody's feeding him this week about that, like they were the week before. Funny how not facing the Commanders turnstile
right
changes things there a little bit.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think it's a good thing that they made that change, and I think it will help the Lions long term. But yes, exactly. I thought we're kind of overreacting a little bit to just, I believe, one of the worst defenses in the league. And it's why I thought you could play 2 off a streaming quarterback this week. I was wrong about that. But Commanders defense is one of the worst. I think we were overreacting a little bit to Dan Campbell calling plays.
Yeah, absolutely. There. Eagles offense, not fixed. Not fixed at all. And now Lane Johnson out 4 to 6 weeks. This is a big injury.
Yeah, and I think they were missing Jurgens as well, their center too, by the end of
On
that
and off in
game.
that
Yeah,
game, yeah.
and Roth had come in. He was already playing a little bit as that point. Uh, I I trust the Eagles' offensive line infrastructure and the coaching staff to be able to make it better. Like when the Chargers miss multiple offensive line pieces, we're just like, okay, I mean, now we're going to be one of the worst offenses in the league, as we saw against Jacksonville. We'll talk about later in the show. Just okay, that they just kind of just self-combust. I don't think that'll happen in Philadelphia. Will the rushing attack be as good without Lane Johnson? I don't know. I do think Jalen Hurts mitigates a lot of the pass rushing woes with how he gets up in the pocket and how defenses have to kind of cater to him being a scrambling threat. So that's already an asset in itself. But when you can't pass the ball in mid-November successfully or confidently or consistently, then you could argue that that also isn't as much of an asset too. The Eagles, I don't forget what broadcast brought this up, but the Eagles are so much like last year's Chiefs, where the Chiefs just inexplicably winning games. They weren't that level of NFL team that we thought, but here they end up being, and we thought, okay, for sure they're going to lose in the postseason because the Chiefs last year weren't very good. Oh, well, they made it to the Super Bowl again. I have a feeling we're entering that stage with the Eagles that there's no way they should. And I think the NFC is deeper and better. And whereas the Chiefs just had the number of the Bills and the Ravens, which were the only two competition for them last year, I don't think the Eagles have that same sort of thing. But boy, I'm going to be really annoyed if we have the Eagles in the Super Bowl after what we've seen throughout this regular season, because that goes against everything that I know of football to be what does successful offense and defense work together. It is not symbiotic in any means. It's the defense hard carrying the offense right now.
Yeah. As long as you don't use the phrase complimentary football, you and I can get along. I do not want to ever hear that being imposed on my podcast here. It's our podcast. I get it. But, the defense is amazing right now. The trades have worked out. Jalen Phillips in particular has worked out. But they also added some depth here and there, too, at other spots. They still could use another corner. That's one thing.
Jair Alexander would be great, right?
Yeah. Well, what depends on what version of Jair Alexander you're going to get. That's just the problem.
Yeah, the retired one's not going to work. You're right.
No, the one that was playing before he retired, not so much either. So that's kind of a problem. But Jalen Phillips, that has unlocked a lot for this team. It frees up like a Jalix Hunt to go hunt for the quarterback, so to speak. Nakobe Dean is roaming around looking as good as ever. Remember, he's coming into the season hurt. So that's another guy that I think is playing up to a different level right now. You saw him in coverage on Gibbs in some situations. Like, yeah, no problem. I got this. Now, how many linebackers can say that?
Right.
Like two.
Yeah, to that level, you're right. And Nakobe Dean was already one of those guys that had he not had that significant knee injury really right before the draft, maybe there was a first round conversation. It was like, oh, of course the Eagles get this guy. That was in their long stretch of it. And I thought last year at times when Dean was ramping up, it wasn't the level of explosive athlete that we had been told he was supposed to be with his Georgia pedigree. He's been every bit of that part for me. I think for as much as Zach Bond kind of emerged last year and became that guy in their Super Bowl run, Nakobe Dean is doing the same thing for that defense. And I think the Jalen Phillips stuff is a little bit like he's been awesome. A lot of those plays feel like pretty obvious to make, and would he be able to do that along without the Jalen Carters of the world and now all the depth that they have? I don't know. And Phillips being as injury prone as he has been for Miami during his career, that one feels like it's going to get solved in some way as we get throughout the postseason. But right now, of course, yeah. And again, the Eagles are very fine just saying, yeah, we'll let the defense beat you because we don't want to be aggressive enough to have the offense lose a game, which to their credit has worked out well this season.
It has. So yeah, I have news for you. I think the Eagles are still going to be the odds-on favorite to be in the Super Bowl again. Although where that Eagles-Rams game or Eagles-Seahawks game is played might matter. Yeah. I think that's going to be. I think we're approaching that. So that's all I'll say about that for now. We got plenty of time to talk more about that. Before we talk about the AFC, let's go ahead and take our first break. Quick note from our friends over at Trophy Smack. Trophy Smack has been a good friend of ours for a while. Now there's advertising on our podcast. Love to have them aboard. You dominated your fantasy football season all season long. Now it's time to show it off. Trophy Smack turns your league domination into hardware built to flex. From championship belts, trophies, rings, and chains, they've got everything a true champion needs to make victories unforgettable. And don't forget about shaming that league loser. They've got items like high visibility loser vests, embarrassing singlets, and humiliating license plate frames. Trophy Smack fuels the glory and the punishment every league needs to keep the season unforgettable. Trash talk fades, but hardware lasts forever. You earn this moment. Claim it. Visit TrophySmack.com to lock in your hardware and take 10% off with code ROTOSMACK10. That's Trophy, SMACK.com, code ROTOSMACK10. You can thank us later. Thank you now to Trophy Smack for joining us today. Let's talk a little Chiefs and Broncos. Joe, barring like an absolute series of cataclysmic events, the Chiefs are not going to win the AFC West this year.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. I thought this would be a kitchen sink game for the Broncos, that they would do things offensively we haven't seen them do before, and either the Chiefs would be prepared or Bo Nix would mess it up, and therefore the Chiefs would win. I had assumed the Chiefs would win this football game. I had been saying that they would cover the spread as well last week too. Like, I was not overreacting to what I thought was a very fluky Broncos team. This was a good game for Bo Nix, but the offense played really well, and I didn't think they did a whole lot different. Like, if this was going to be a kitchen sink game, I was more or less wrong, because I thought the Bo Nix offense was making deliberate throws. They were intentional. I thought Trey Franklin had a really good game, and it was really kind of just saying, Patrick Mahomes, you have to singularly beat us. And I thought without Pat Surtain, maybe he could. But right now, with the way the Chiefs offense is, they just seem incapable or unwanting to run the football. I don't think this is a team that wins more than one postseason game. Maybe I'll put it that way. Like, I'm comfortable going to an extent that unless the Chiefs figure out how to be in the neighborhood of 100 rushing yards per game on maybe like 4 or 5 yards per carry, it can't just be Kareem Hunt. Like, if Kareem Hunt by the end of January is getting 90% of the carries, I think the Chiefs might be a one and done postseason team. That might be a hot take, but I look at the top of the AFC, and if they go against the Patriots, for example, and the Patriots will do just fine, I actually do think if the Chiefs face the Broncos a third time, maybe it's a little bit different, but I don't think it's possible to face the Bills now at this point either. But there's a lot of teams that are also in the wild card spot. That's the only saving grace for, if I'm a Kansas City fan right now, is a lot of the teams that typically were expected to be one of the best in the AFC will all be with us as a Chiefs fan in that wild card spot. And you would theoretically not face them until the conference championships. So maybe you go ahead and beat an upstart Colts team in the postseason, or you could get a revenge game against the Broncos or whatever else. But I just don't think they're winning more than 2 playoff games, more than 1 playoff game, if you can't establish the run to the degree that they have been unable to now for a month. And again, that they couldn't cough over a 3rd round pick or convince the Jets to take a 4th round pick for Breece Hall might be the reason why we don't label this Chiefs team as a dynasty, when they probably should be if they just got a better running back for this year.
Well, let's be clear. They are a dynasty, whether they make it there this year or not. They've already achieved dynasty status. I think in this era, the number of Super Bowls that they've been to and the number of AFC championship games they've been to, they're a dynasty. Full stop. That said, this is going to be this is either the fall of the Roman Empire year or maybe a blip on the radar, but either way, it's not going to end well. I agree with you if they don't fix that soon. You saw what the Bills did to them before their bye week, and the Bills, who cannot stop the run, were just saying, hey, go ahead. You can run on us. Beat us that way. Go ahead. And the Chiefs are like, do not want. Will not try. And that to me was like, canary in the coal mine. They had to trade for Breece Hall. I'm with you on this one. 100%. They had to do this, and I understand when you have heavy contracts like Mahomes and others, you have to restock through the draft, and yet, that Hall was worth that 3rd round pick. He was absolutely 100% worth it. I think they thought that Pacheco would be available for that Week 10 game, this Week 11 game against the Broncos. That was the talk going into the bye week. Clearly, he wasn't ready, and I don't know if he'll be ready this week. I like Pacheco. I don't know if he was enough of a difference maker, but he was a difference maker. If you saw the 2 games before when the Raiders game and the game before that, he was really good. But the Raiders game, he got hurt late in that one. But he was the guy who was taking goal line carries. He was, Hunt was a little banged up that week too, but he was a difference maker. He was that guy a little bit, and the Chiefs were kind of at full function. Now, I think they're playing a lot more 2 deep zone since then. I do think that Pacheco's absence matters. I don't know if it's enough though, and because there was early season games too where they had a healthy Pacheco where he wasn't doing that much either.
Yeah, 12 12 carries against the Lions week 6, 15 carries against the Raiders in week 7, and the Commanders in week 8. 51, 57, 58 rushing yards against 1 touchdown against the Raiders. We're talking about the Lions, Raiders, and Commanders defense. None of them are juggernauts against the run. And
Lions
he fails
are
to
okay
get over
against the run, aren't they?
They're metrically, this from a fantasy perspective, fine. I would rather, I think you could beat the Lions in a lot of different ways. You could beat them on the ground. We always talk about path of least resistance in the Friday Series 6M show. I think it's easier to beat them via pass. That's what most teams choose to do.
For sure.
But again, the Raiders and Commanders defense, those are very susceptible to the run. They have been all year. And Pacheco still goes under 60 yards despite getting 12 touches. I'm out of Pacheco. And I think the Chiefs are too, frankly. I think if Pacheco was a bigger part of that offensive game plan, we would have heard less conversation about Breece Hall. I feel like it was openly obvious for the past couple of weeks that the Chiefs have been courting him. It was a matter of that they were trying to convince the Jets to take the lesser price tag. Why you're quibbling about a 3rd or 4th round pick if you're the Chiefs part of things was dumb. I think if the Jets also didn't do the deal was dumb. It was like both teams kind of like, well, which one of you is going to fold on the dumb thing that's going to happen? And the Jets said, you know what? We're not going to be part of this. And we're going to make Jeff have to consider what a dynasty conversation is after you lose in the postseason. Because I think if the Chiefs do lose this year, it will be kind of self-inflicted that they walked into this spot now with as little of with as little teeth as this rushing attack has. And I think it was a self-inflicted wound.
I agree. I absolutely agree. They should have done it. All right, let's move on. Although, actually, to talk about the Broncos side of things. We got to give them fair shake here real quick because hey, they're the ones that actually won this game.
Right.
Now, if the Chiefs make that extra point, by the way, and go up 20-16 instead of 19-16, this game might play out differently. Broncos settled for the game-tying field goal and then had a game-winning field goal. If they have to go for the touchdown, we might be talking about a completely different game. Broncos, Bo Nix actually played better at times than I've seen otherwise. He made some pretty important throws late. Far better than obviously the win over the Raiders the week before. The running game was a joke in their own right. We were all excited for the ascendant RJ Harvey, and that didn't happen. Instead, it's Jaleel McLaughlin that got the rushing touchdown. Nice Peyton stick it into you every time there. But how convinced are you that Broncos can make a run in the playoffs now that they've got a good angle, at least being at home for the playoffs, at least a round or two? How excited are you about the Broncos?
They will, if they don't win the number 1 overall seed, and it seems like the Patriots will, they'll be the number 2. And so number 2 would be the number 7. Like in that scenario, they're going against probably the Chargers or Steelers, maybe Ravens as well too, or maybe Jacksonville sneaking something like that.
Yeah,
right. I think the Broncos win that game if they are the 3 seed. And they are going against a Ravens or Chiefs team, or Bills team in that regard. I would assume Bills are probably going to be the 5 seed. No shot. And if you are sitting at 2, you probably still are facing one of those guys in the divisional round, and I think there's no shot there too. I think this is a pretender team because Bo Nix can't elevate to that level. I think the defense will be fine, but you have so many battle-tested postseason teams that are comfortable when their offense isn't generating 40 points in a week, how they can still win football games. I don't think the Broncos know what to do in those games other than hope their defense bails them out. So I would be very surprised if we're talking about the Broncos as a Final Four team come January.
I love the playoff standings right now. Current top seeds in the AFC. Broncos 1, Pats 2. They have the tiebreaker right now, by the way. The Broncos over the Pats. Colts 3, Steelers 4. I think, it's so funny seeing familiar names not there. The Bills are at 5. The Chiefs are out. The Ravens are out right now. It goes Bills, Chargers, Jaguars 5 through 7 too. So it's mass chaos right now in the AFC.
Oh, it actually honestly is in the NFC. You were talking about the Niners going to be making the postseason. I'm like, really? They're going to? They're sitting at the number 7 spot, but they're scheduled to end the year way more favorable than the Bears, for example, who sit at number 3, and the Packers are in a really weird spot as well too. And the Packers could easily miss. It's I've been annoyed just overall with this season because I think there's been let's just say 8 teams in the NFL that entering this year did such stupid things, team building wise, game plan wise, coaching wise, that they were never going to have a shot. And it felt like a lot like the NBA. Not that those, I don't think those 8 NFL teams were deliberately tanking, whereas the NBA, they choose to do that. I think they were just that stupid that they actively walked into the season thinking this would be successful when it wouldn't. But what's happened is that I thought the top of the league would benefit like we've had in past years. It's really smoothed out where it's been basically, here's 8 of the dumbest teams you've ever seen in your life. But what happens if 20 teams are actually sort of competent, and then they all kind of have random luck in their favor where it keeps them around 500. It has made this NFL season really fun, and I think the stretch post-Thanksgiving is going to be really, really interesting, but also heartbreaking, I would imagine, for at least one fan base, probably myself, the Packers, and one more on the AFC side of things too. I'm very excited and also really nervous for a few of the teams in that range.
Yeah, top 4 seeds in the NFC: Eagles, Rams, Bears, Bucks. Seattle is the 5, and that just happens to be same division. Packers are the 6, Niners are the 7, and the Lions are the outside looking in right now.
Yeah. And the Panthers hovering around there as well, too, inexplicably. I think the Panthers are not at all.
That's coming up. Don't worry. In fact, that is our next game to discuss. Let's hit that now. Start off on the Atlanta side. You had an epic rant on SiriusXM today talking about the Falcons. Michael Penix out for the year. Drake London doubtful for this game, and my God, they're 3-7. Take your time bringing them back. And like, except for my fantasy teams where I have like 5 shares of Drake London, including the stake league, this is going to hurt me a lot. But yeah, at the same time, it's so funny. They went through, they did all these machinations to make sure they're never stuck at quarterback again. And now they're stuck at quarterback again because Kirk Cousins stinks and Michael Penix is hurt again. And this is like the 3rd or 4th time he's had a season-ending injury, 3rd time to a knee. So you have a legitimate question about Penix's future. And you have a real and worse question about Cousins' present right now with the Falcons. And you thought there would be a drop off maybe in year 3 of that deal. Like, okay, it's worth it because the first 2 years he'll be good enough. He'll be that veteran. Give us 2 good years while Penix gets up to speed in the NFL, and then we can make this transition. And instead, they're a disaster. And the season's done anyhow. Even if Cousins is okay the rest of the way, they're 3-7.
The one thing that you need to come away from the season is Penix, the long-term part of your future.
Right.
And again, you're going to walk away from this being like, I don't know. The one thing that you need, the Falcons didn't have to do anything in the postseason, even though they had a favorable schedule. They're in one of the worst divisions they have been now for the past half decade. There are so many things that the Falcons could have easily, if they even just slightly overachieved, could have done. They could have been the Broncos this year. I don't think the way we were discussing the Broncos is too much different or outstretched from what the Falcons could have been. I mean, I think that was the maturation process of this. You trade your 1st round pick next year to go ahead and get the defense being better. You've invested in the secondary a bit more. It's AJ Terrell and Jesse Bates. Now you have pass rushers. And if Michael Penix is even league average, if he somehow becomes better, like look what happened Bo Nix's rookie year. Like I know what the Falcons were trying to talk themselves into, but I mentioned this on SiriusXM. How they came to this process should be a 30 for 30 documentary on the stupidity of doubling down on bad decisions. I said at the time, everyone said at the time who's ever followed football in their life, how do you sign a quarterback to the deal Cousins did and then draft a quarterback at number 8 that same year?
And get punished for tampering, by the way, on the Cousins.
That's right.
It's a little cherry on top.
Oh, that's there wasn't a way for this to ever look pristine. I thought we were actually heading to the best case scenario where, it turns out Cousins was completely kaput. And at least we knew that when we signed him. Why did we sign him anyway for that deal? Whatever. But we learned that pretty quickly. And now we drafted Penix. And even if he ends up being like a top 20 quarterback in the league, fine. So be it, we're on a rookie deal. We're kind of offsetting, but we're offsetting the $45 million a year, which won't go until June 1st cap cut next off season. Like you can't move past this Cousins thing for one more year, given the contract you signed. And I don't think Penix has been very good. I'm more comfortable saying Michael Penix is a bad quarterback than I'm comfortable saying JJ McCarthy is a bad quarterback. Now, I want to be clear. I thought McCarthy was a bad quarterback entering the NFL. I think I've been proven correct thus far, but there's been only
draft class.
5 or 6 different games for McCarthy really to say we're not. Penix only has a slightly larger sample size, but he is an older quarterback now entering potentially his 3rd ACL tear in his football career. This is just a really hard thing to jump over. And I think you as the Falcons now, without at minimum a top 10 pick, if not a little bit higher than that going to the Rams, are going to be entering another offseason not knowing what to do at quarterback, not knowing how to build your roster because you don't have that in place. And also, do you fire your GM and leave Raheem Mostert as a lame duck coach, or do you fire Raheem Mostert and the GM and then full circle everything with Michael Penix in there for maybe one more year? You're getting dangerously close to a Chicago Bears timeline where we're doing this weird stop-start thing going
New York
on.
Giants timeline, yes.
And Jets, same. Like this is going to get really gross, and I don't know a solution for it other than to just sort of let's wash our hands, clean slate, and actually clean slate this, because this has been an effectively bad doubling down of really dumb decisions to start with.
The Rams have their first round pick next year because of the Franklin trade that everybody first guessed, by the way. So this isn't second guessing here. Everybody said this was a bad idea, and sure enough, it was. I said we get back to this earlier on when this was posted. Dynasty trade. Gentleman is stacked at wide receiver. Will asks this and he goes, I have Darnold and Love at QB, super flex league, obviously just knocked out of the playoffs in a dynasty league, was offered Penix, a 26 first, a 27 first, and a 27 second for Love, Devonta Smith, and Spears. And Joe, I would not do this. I first of all, trading, because I don't think Penix is going to be worth that much, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, the acquiring team is giving you end of the first round, presumably next year, and presumably in 27 too. Probably a very good team, I'm guessing, is going for that. They're going for this cherry on the top players there that help you win titles. And I just don't know how valuable those first round picks are going to be. If you're at the end of the first round, I don't know. And if Penix isn't going to help you next year, and he probably won't, he'll be your third quarterback after Dart and Darnold. I don't know what we're doing here. I don't think you're getting enough value. I had it's a humble brag position, but I had the end of the first round in two different dynasty leagues this year. And this is supposed to be a great year.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've gotten RJ Harvey and Caleb Johnson with those picks. How good is that? I mean, yes, I could have gotten there were.
You could have gotten Warren. I mean, you could have gotten Tyler Warren, but yes, that's fair.
No, Warren was gone.
Oh, okay.
Warren was gone, and Loveland was available in one of them, and that might have been an answer. But I needed help at running back. Is the thing is maybe I needed to trade up, but the point is, those picks are a crapshoot. That's the real point.
Yes.
You can there are right answers, but drafting those is hard.
I don't know how this is a fantasy podcast. I don't know how Michael Penix rehabs his fantasy value next year where you can sell him tangibly for something else. So the way I would do this, and this is a good exercise of just how I would tackle trade things. I would want to know from this person, how do you value Jordan Love? Let's break this down. Like, is Devonta Smith just a second round pick to you? I don't know if that's what I would sell him for necessarily, but if I'm out of the playoffs, okay, fine. What is Jordan Love? Is that a first and second of Michael Penix? Okay, I think that's the way I would try to break it down piece by piece and then smush it all back together and see what that looks like. If Penix can be a top 20 valued quarterback in Dynasty, I think I'm okay with that deal. I just don't know if he can. And I don't know who's going to be buying that. And more importantly, those future picks that you're talking about, there's going to be one class coming up with Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith, two stud receivers that I think a lot of people have been projecting for a long time in Dynasty. Well, everyone knows about them. So you can't just be like, oh, I'll give you pick 110 and pick 14 to move up to 11. Like, we've been talking about this for now 3 years at this point. Those will be more valued and understood than relative other 1-1s or 1-2s might be. So I mean, and I know Uncle Ted's saying Jordan Love is mid. I'm not saying he's not. But I don't think Jordan
Love. But in
Love,
a super flex league, he's mid is great.
Love doesn't fall off in the same way that Michael Penix could very easily fall off. And I don't think there is a possibility to rehab up to the same sort of level. That's where I go back to this whole part of it. Like, to have 3 ACL tears in your NFL career, 4 season-ending injuries dating back to college, and being one of the older prospects entering the league, this is bad. It's just point blank bad.
Right. We've given no love to Carolina in this whole process, by the way.
I refuse to. I'm sorry. I'm not going to.
I don't want to go out and advocate for Bryce Young because we were writing him off after, 3 straight horrific games. But I will say I'm going to write in for Teteroa McMillan. Dude is a stud. That guy is going to be great for a long time. They gave him they gave Bryce Young a really nice gift in getting him Teteroa McMillan. and the overall like touchdown numbers may not show it, but you just watch him play, and you can see how good he is. He is such a stud of a player. I'm duly impressed with him, and he gets to face the Niners this week.
Yeah, they gave the next Panthers quarterback a really good gift too. I agree with you on that one. It's not pricing. Yeah, so I was totally wrong with this one. I didn't want McMillan in a redraft. The price tag was appropriate, but I was just concerned about the Panthers offense. And more importantly, there was reports, and I'll specifically say Todd McShay was somebody I valued a lot during the draft process. And McShay had been he had McMillan as like his 47th best prospect. Like it was like so down in the realm of those. And I was like, okay, if a guy is plugged in as McShay is saying that McMillan is this bad of a prospect relative to the other receivers, he must know something. And specifically, McShay was talking about attitude issues for McMillan. And I thought, okay, if this is what McShay is doing on his show, this is not just a guy that's clickbaiting. He's already got paid from the Ringer. Like he's fine there. Then there must be something that I don't know. And that was the part that scared me. Couldn't have been more wrong because I loved McMillan. This is the part that frustrates me the most about this. I fall so easily for the big-bodied archetype receiver that can jump ball and catch that stuff. Quentin Johnson was a guy I liked a lot, and I was wrong about. I liked Keon Coleman for the same exact way. Was wrong about that too. McMillan looked the exact part of that kind of archetype I like, but I was talked out of it because there was effort issues or whatever else. And this is going to turn into
you instead of trusting your instincts, you appeal to authority.
It was like an Anthony Edwards thing, right? I mean, that's what the NBA did too. Like there's talks about Anthony Edwards wanting to play in the NFL, not the NBA, and that's why he was maybe not going to be considered number 1 overall pick. He ends up going there. It was great, obviously, and now we don't even discuss that anymore. I feel like the same thing's going to happen with Ted McMillan, and I will have not benefited again, despite my love for this kind of archetype of receiver.
Yeah, brutal. I do have McMillan in my 3rd dynasty league, so I'm very happy about that. All right, we're way beyond schedule here, so we're going to get you another
as
read.
Usual.
Yeah, this is even more than usual this time, and that's great. It means there's lots to talk about. But our friends over at Dabble have a great product for you. We're going to, tell you about that. Dabble isn't just another DFS app. It's the ultimate social platform where you can connect with other fantasy sports lovers. Dabble lets you win big. You can win up to 5,000 times your money this football season. Starting with Dabble is easy. New users get $25 free when signing up. No deposit is necessary. Check out the link in the episode description below to download Dabble now. Big thanks to Dabble for advertising on the RotoWire podcast. Let's find the second spitter, Joe. It's Jamar Chase was the first one, unfortunately. He's going to be suspended this week. Bengals season is essentially over. They are the Falcons of the AFC. No more Bushwood. No more fun. It's over. They're 8.5-point underdogs at home to the Pats this week. And I think I would even go all the way up to 18.5. And I might be a self-hating Bengals fan here on this one here, but just a desultory performance from the Bengals. Rodgers wasn't even in there in the second half of this game for the Steelers. He may not play this upcoming week. Jaylen Warren may or may not play this upcoming week. Just doesn't matter. Life is pointless.
Yeah, I honestly will defer to you since I get to have a similar rant for the Packers upcoming here. But I don't know what you're supposed to fix and how you're supposed to fix things if you're the Bengals. I feel like the roster construction was painfully, obviously bad to start the year, and it's played out basically exactly like you'd thought with Burrow being hurt. And we're at a point now where I don't know how this gets fixed overnight, and you're now running the clock on a guy who, let's face it, Jeff, is a little bit injury prone at quarterback with the way Burrow's been banged up. Whether it's his fault or not, the offensive line, I think, is a large part of it. But the clock is kind of ticking on what was supposed to be a nucleus that could contend for Super Bowls for multiple years, and that's just not been happening.
Wasted opportunities. Last year was the ultimate wasted opportunity. Had elite seasons from Burrow, Chase, great second half of the season from Higgins. Trey Hendrickson turned in an epic season. They had an easy schedule. They went 9-8 and had to rally to do it. It's just the ultimate waste. And strong Andrew Luck vibes with Joe Burrow, strong Dan Marino vibes. Dan Marino made 1 Super Bowl in his second season, or maybe even his rookie season. Oh, it's like he'll be back. They lost to the Niners that year. He'll be back. There'll be plenty more. There was never any more. And I'm getting similar vibes here. And just an organization that spent to keep Chase and Higgins, but then won't go the distance. Have you ever seen the movie The Untouchables? Probably not. Sean
Not
Connery,
that one. No.
Kevin Costner. There's a line in there. What are you prepared to do? This is what you need to ask the Bengals. What are you prepared to do to try to win the Super Bowl? They aren't prepared to do it. They weren't like structuring the Chase and Higgins contract so they could go out and sign other free agents that they really needed. They needed to address right guard this offseason. They didn't. They did absolutely nothing there. They have a converted like 6th round tackle at right guard, and then he got hurt. He's like their 4th option, by the way. They lost one in training camp, but all of them were bad to begin with. There was all these set of bad options. The defense, they didn't do anything meaningful to improve this defense. TJ Slayton, you knew him as a Packers fan. You know he's not an interior pass rusher. They needed an interior pass rusher badly, didn't get it. They needed linebacker help. They whiffed on that. They tried to get it. They whiffed. Demetrius Knight is having a terrible season. The other kid they put in, they pushed Logan Wilson to the side for, is even worse right now. Moving on. I can't get upset about this season anymore. It's over. Let's move on. A fun game instead. Bills-Bucs. This was fun. I got to talk about this for a long time with Jim on Monday. Didn't give you as much of an opportunity because I ate up like 15 minutes. I had so many notes on this game. I will say this. Todd Bowles, not ready for primetime. He is a classic, got the team in a better spot type of coach.
Great example. Yes. He's like the Mike Budenholzer of NFL coaches, right? Like he'll elevate you to a level, but will never exceed that. I think I'm not gonna like do the outdating you thing, but your generation of coaches, especially in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of those guys that I'm like not as familiar with, but you could probably name those level of coaches. That's a lost genre of coach a little bit. Like Bill Parcells was a Super Bowl winning coach, but my period of really infamy for the NFL was like early 2000s. That was always what Parcells was to me, where he'll elevate your guys to playoff contenders, but not much more than that. Like he never was anything more to that level. Or Schottenheimer.
Schottenheimer is a really good example.
The Charger. Right? I mean, like I'm thinking of the same coach, right?
Yeah, Schottenheimer is a fantastic example of that. Except, in the case of the Bucs, they're never even the number 1 seed. They just win a bad division every year. I think that's the thing. A couple of things that manifested itself there. There were 2 really awful decisions in this game. And it's a shootout of a game. You got to realize the context of the game. First half, they're up 17-14 right around the 2-minute warning. They punt from the Buffalo 43 on 4th and 5. It was a good punt, and you know what? The Bills still drove the length of the field and scored a Ty Johnson touchdown there.
Yeah.
That is, you got to know what type of game you're in before you make that sort of decision. And playing the Bills in Buffalo, you're not going to have a defensive battle.
I'm going to pause you there because I think you're going to go to what I'm going to say next, and this is why I want to interject. It's what I mentioned on SiriusXM earlier today, and I feel even more strongly about it now. It's the Buccaneers don't have an identity. Dan Campbell goes for that every single time. Even if it doesn't work, we talked about that earlier with the Lions and Eagles game. It doesn't matter. Dan Campbell has the identity. Bowles it doesn't have to be every single week going for those 4th downs. But what I want the Buccaneers to be is this smart, electric team that plays with the small advantages that it has over its opponents week in and week out, because largely they will not be as talented of a team as their opponent they're facing, and they'll beat up the bad teams. To win this kind of game, you have to run effectively and you have to be aggressive. Even if it doesn't work out, whatever, you're going to lose anyway. And that's the quintessential example of not having an identity that you could build around.
Yeah. The worst one, though, they're 4th quarter. Sterling Shepard has a bad drop on 3rd and 2. Would have been a first down. Should have caught it. No doubt about it there. They're down 37-32, keep in mind here. There is about 8 minutes left in the game. 7 minutes. I think 8 minutes left in the game. It's now 4th and 2 on their own 39. They punt. You cannot do that. Bills do a 4.5-minute drive. They go up 2 touchdowns, basically 44-32. Then, the Bucs need 2 touchdowns after the game over. There's 2.5 minutes left in the game at that point in time. You cannot do that. You have to score on that drive. You absolutely must score on that drive. You're not going for the more acceptable loss. Well, What about flipping the field? What about if you make it? What if you make it? They always think about what if they don't make it there. Guess what? For all the convention about the Lions not making it on 4th down, you know how many times the Eagles actually cashed in on that?
Exactly.
Like once, twice, barely at all. The Lions found themselves in position again to go for it. They should have won that game. They really should have. Given all the offensive woes for the Eagles. Meanwhile, though, the Bills, I mean, the Bills are not stopping Sean Tucker. 3rd and 2, they don't run it. Okay, fine. Maybe give it to him on 4th and 2. Maybe do anything else but punt. Just terrible.
I want the ball in Baker Mayfield's hands in that scenario. But even if you call it like a read option call, like that, I want Baker to have the way he'd been playing earlier this year, and how he seems to rise to every stakes. It's actually the antithesis, I think, of Raheem Morris. Todd Bowles, their coach for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, your turn to do it.
Yeah, you got me.
Morris used to coach the Bucs, so that's and he stayed in the division now. Too,
yeah,
so.
I just that's the culture guys like Dan Campbell are really hard coaches to come by, and sometimes they're a little bit of the kooky kind. Like I think Sean McVay is a culture coach, but I wouldn't say the McVay process would have helped the Buccaneers any better. Like there's a specific mindset, and I don't know the assistants or defense coordinators or run game coordinators well enough to sort of identify who could be that, but the Buccaneers need that to elevate to the next level. I think if they want to try to find it, they could. I think it's a very specific archetype that would be beneficial for them. But until that point happens, they're going to be no better than the NFC South winner that will be gamey in the playoffs. They'll win a game or two against opponents that aren't prepared, but they won't elevate past whatever level of the Eagles or Lions or Rams. Should those guys be around, whatever that tier of player teams
they
is
could even
year.
win one upset, but they can't win 2.
They can't go. Yeah. And they're better than the Commanders in that way, where I thought the Commanders last year were a fluky team. The Buccaneers are not. But they need that sort of archetype of coach to instill something that the Buccaneers don't have currently.
Yeah. Huge kick returns in this game, too. Was another big factor in this game. The fact that Allen went nuts after being terrible early.
Yes.
I mean, how many times have I heard about the chest pass interception?
Yeah.
Amazing. Should have thrown another one on the next subsequent drive. Didn't. They didn't hold on to it there. But there's a lot going on in that one there. So much more to talk about. We're going to rapid fire through the rest of these, but first got a couple more pieces of business to attend to. Noteworthy there. We got to talk a little bit about, first of all, from Chalkboard will be our next read. And that one, we've been heading Chalkboard all season long. You can cash in on your NFL picks this season with Chalkboard. Simply choose more or less on your favorite player stats to win up to 5,000 times your money. For a limited time only, new players receive a free pick and 100% deposit match. See why over 1 million fans have already locked in with Chalkboard to turn their sports knowledge into cold, hard cash. Whether you're locking in the perfect slip with alternate lines, using the cash out feature to take your money and run, or hammering the daily promos, today is your chance to win up to $40,000 on a single entry. Stop sitting on the sidelines and get into the game with Chalkboard Fantasy Sports. Now available in 30-plus states. Download Chalkboard today and use promo code ROTONFL. That's ROTONFL to claim your free pick and 100% deposit match now. All right, we're also on the BlueWire Network. Here are their ads. Okay, we got a lot to talk about here. Let's start going through them. The first place Chicago Bears winning in Minnesota. It was a J.J. McCarthy disaster fest. The Bears tried to punt it away, tried to give this game away. The receivers, DJ Moore was doing his best Romeo Doubs impersonation there. And yet a big kick return sets up the game-winning field goal for them.
Yeah, so, I mean, Bears are in first place in their division. Kudos to beating the opponents on the schedule. It's one of the reasons why I think people entering the league or entering the year thought the Bears would be in this spot. They've beaten the teams more or less that they're supposed to. The Raiders, the Commanders, which was a 1-point win, the Saints, those were all wins that they should have had. I thought they should have beat the Ravens as well, too, with Tyler Huntley as the quarterback. That was a loss. But your Bengals probably a win as well, too. And then Giants. So it's going to enter this stretch now. And I think the Vikings, with how McCarthy's been playing, would have been a win as well, too. Steelers, Eagles, Packers again, Niners, Lions. You have one game in this stretch against the Browns where I would imagine the Bears will be prohibitive favorites. And even that game, I actually think that's going to be a game in which the Browns could be very competitive.
Yeah.
With the postseason where it's at, we talk about the Niners being in that race. Really, they only have one hard game rest of the season, and the Packers facing them twice now, and then the Lions as well to end the season. I have had some friends say that the Bears are one of the biggest frauds of the year. I don't agree with that. I think it's something to be said that they beat the teams they're supposed to. My Packers can't do that. The Bears have done that. But I don't have a lot of confidence that against this stretch, I mean, you could pick it out. Like, do you think they beat the Steelers this week? I do, but that's a really good defense. And if the offense of Pittsburgh can do anything, let's just say get over 17 points, I'd be a little bit worried. I don't think they beat the Eagles whatsoever. I think they probably split against the Packers, and I don't think they beat the Niners or Lions. So that's 4 losses, and that puts you out of the playoffs right now where it's at. Even one of those swinging in a different way, though, getting enough built up wins that you could put yourself in the spot where if you upset a team or two, or you catch a team where they're injured, kind of like the Bengals, the Bears are in a good spot. So I don't think they're a fraud team at all. They have beaten the teams they're supposed to beat. And how great is that as a Bears fan to actually have that from your team after years and years and years of under delivering?
Agreed. They're winning games. They always found a way to lose. I
Yes.
think that's really what it is. One positive wild card is Caleb Williams. His ability to sense the rush is improved leaps and bounds. He got caught one or two times against the Vikings. Vikings were bringing all sorts of pressure immediately and always. And he did a great job of dodging the rush more often than not. With any sort of help from his receivers, this could have been a bigger win.
Yeah.
One negative wild card. I know he made 4 field goals, but Cairo Santos missed a one from 45 indoors. That's a make for almost every kicker. The game winner almost missed. It was really close. We've seen other instances there where he's been very unstable. If it comes down to kicking this week, for instance, huge disadvantage with kickers against Pittsburgh, obviously. But I do wonder, in a key playoff moment, will the Bears be scuttled by a field goal kicker again? It could happen. I'm not wishing that upon you. I know Joe is wishing that upon you.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
yeah, you can see that there. But they're dangerous. They're dangerous and they're fun. So, hey, enjoy it. It's fun while, these sort of seasons are fun. And after you've gone through a lot of hell to get to this point.
Right.
Your Green Bay Packers, not only did they win, Joe, they covered. Didn't feel like it at all. But here we are without Josh Jacobs, basically for 3/4 of this game. They won this game somehow. They pulled it out. It didn't feel like it because the Giants moved the ball up and down against them, especially running the ball with Tyrone Tracy, which I did not see coming. Both teams had kicker madness. I think the wins played a huge factor in that. You had a lot of butterfingers on offense and defense for the Packers, yet you found a way to win by 7.
Yeah, and that didn't even feel safe until the final 35 seconds. There was a drive that Winston ends up putting the Giants ahead where the Packers had 2, literally, you can't believe they dropped it, interceptions.
Yep.
And that's really frustrating, but it's been how the Packers defense has been all year, where they just can't seem to generate turnovers. And you can have the pass rush that you think it should be when you have Rashawn Gary, Micah Parsons, and you can have the pass rush that was, I think, last week, where Micah Parsons was a difference maker, which is why you trade for him. But if you can't capitalize on turnovers, if you can't force them, it's just going to be a season where you're going to die by 1,000 paper cuts. And I like the Jeff Hafley defense far more than the Dom Capers defense, which was like a worse version of this. But if you're not able to capitalize on the turnovers or create them, it's the way the NFL is played right now. You're going to lose more of these games. That's why every team seems to be close. Now, Jameis Winston's a better quarterback than Russell Wilson right now. That the Giants kind of did this to this point of the year is really weird, when they think could have been a slightly more competitive. I kind of think Russell Wilson was a silent tank commander for this team, that you put him out there for a couple of weeks and you're in a better spot draft wise. But I don't know if Jackson Dart comes back. That'll be a very interesting status for the Giants moving forward, because they're already out of playoff contention, but reps for Jackson Dart's going to be a huge key for his development moving forward. I think the Packers, I actually felt better about the Packers in that win than I have in some time. And I was expecting the Giants to be competitive. I thought the Giants would win. We talked about that last week as well, too. That Jordan Love really stepped up in a really
dimes.
It's really tough. I mean, this is a good pass rush. That was the thing that the Eagles beat them with. That's been the time where even like the Cowboys game, for example, like there are instances where the pass rush rattled Love. Love has some incredible throws despite adverse conditions. And I kind of just give him a lot of credit that was, to me, kind of a making of something. I've had a few moments where I felt like Jordan Love was a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Very brief relative to a lot of other Packer fans. That maybe cemented my stats that the Packers can win and build forward with Jordan Love as the quarterback. That was a really, really good game for him.
Yeah, the game-winning touchdown throw to Watson was just a dime. That was
great catch by him, obviously. But
yes.
I mean, literally put in the only spot that could have been a catch for Watson.
Yeah. And ironically, if someone like Savion Williams came up with a massive play in this game too. Mm-hmm. That was that on 4th down? I think it was a third.
It was a third and 10, but it would have had to be they would have had to go for it in 4th because they were trailing at that point.
You couldn't kick. There was no long distance kicking going on in this
game.
Savion Williams, who's been at the fulcrum of a couple of losses this year, came up
Yeah.
huge in that game. So that was interesting to see. They still insist on using all these lesser players, including DBs on offense. They had the end around there that worked in this game. What's his name? The converted wide receiver.
Bo Melton. Yeah.
Bo Melton. Yeah. He actually had a big play in this game too. So it was a little redemption day for a couple of those guys too.
Yeah. And they could be getting Jayden Reed back after Thanksgiving. That's always been the timeline that they get to this Thanksgiving game, and Jayden Reed could be back. And that would be a really big offensive help for them, especially if you have Christian Watson still healthy, Dobbs, for whatever you think he is as well too, then Jayden Reed, whatever Matthew Golden gives you in that Savion Williams rep makes this offense maybe able to make up the Tucker Kraft thing. It just makes me annoyed that we can't have Kraft as well too. Like, I would feel a whole lot better about postseason chances if Kraft was also on that team too. It's just frustrating.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a massive injury there. And I think in game against Carolina, I think it made a big difference.
Oh yeah.
All right, moving on. Browns, they snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. They overcame Myles Garrett's performance to find a way to lose again.
Yeah, and Garrett's been awesome. Obviously, the Ravens were always going to be. I think the Ravens did cover this one as well too, which is funny, or at least close
they did.
to it.
It was 8.
8. So, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, that is. I mean, that's annoying. I thought this game would be annoying. In the way that the Ravens wouldn't be able to do what you want them to do. It feels like the Browns always play them play them really well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what anyone was really expecting from Shedeur Sanders. I know our friend Chris Liss has him in Dynasty and been pounding the table for Shedeur Sanders being over Dylan Gabriel. And I just needed to have this "I told you so" moment happen. And it was like, okay, actually Shedeur Sanders. Well, why do you think he wasn't playing? Like, the quarterback play wasn't good enough for them to be like, we drafted Dylan Gabriel higher. Let's go ahead and put him out there. Shedeur Sanders was just the worst quarterback. He was worse than Joe Flacco. He was worse than Dylan Gabriel. However, Shedeur Sanders, if he plays this week, will look better because you're going to have game reps now. Like, I think that's
you'll have practice reps.
Exactly.
No practice reps. Right. There was a note after the game that he hadn't had any time with the first team offense since training camp.
So, like, I think Shedeur
Sanders
Sanders
is customary for backups to not practice with the first team much, but zilch, nada when you're the Browns and you don't have your future quarterback on your roster. How is it that you're not even giving him? He had no chance.
Sanders was never going to do good. He was never going to do good. I think he'll be by default better. I just don't. The good ways that we describe a few of these quarterbacks, like Caleb Williams, for example, in the pocket and how he's able to identify the pass rush, that was not a way we described Caleb Williams last year. That I don't think ever gets coached out of Shedeur Sanders. That was the one selling point of why he was good in Colorado. And to me, always reminded me of like a much slower, less athletic, less talented Johnny Manziel. And nobody thought Manziel in the NFL was any good. Like, so that's what Shedeur Sanders as comp to me looks like. I don't think Shedeur Sanders plays in structure whatsoever. I don't think he has the arm talent as Johnny Manziel. So the practice reps will be good, but the Sanders is not the long-term future.
But
either.
Again, that pocket presence doesn't come with just watching players play.
Right, 100%.
You got to have reps.
Yes, 100%.
And keep in mind, I thought it was not an outrage that he was passed over. I agree with you on his talent coming in. And I think a lot of this controversy, such that it is baffling to me. But at the same time, he did not have a puncher's chance at all. No. All right. There's so much more we could talk about. Ravens have some offensive issues. Let's just let it ride until next week.
Yeah, a more competitive game. Yeah.
Although Myles Garrett just wrecked everything, and it was amazing to see. The Niners, Brock Purdy returns, efficiently blow out the Cardinals. You know, they got outgained by over 200 yards, but when you have a 99-yard kickoff return and three turnovers, that's part of it there. Cardinals turned the ball over at the 1-yard line. Didn't even talk about that earlier. Elijah Higgins' fumble was a bad one there. He was going in to score in fumbles. This could have been an even bigger game for Jacoby Brissett absent that fumble, but still the Niners offensively look good.
Sneakily, really big game here against the Panthers this week. Niners favored by 6.5 points, at least currently. I think it's just a lot of disrespect to the Panthers, but largely fair. If Bryce Young can do what he did against the Falcons, I think he can also do it against the 49ers. I just don't know what rhyme or reason seems to trigger this, where Bryce Young can have these kind of blowout games like he did or massive games. But if Bryce Young plays to that level, they easily beat the 49ers this week. I think easily beat them. I just don't think they will. I have 0 degree of confidence, and I have more confidence in Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy, and now Ricky Pearsall getting back as well too. We didn't talk about that in Sirius XM very much. The offenses could be better, and if they can be less reliant on Christian McCaffrey, that will make them more potent come the postseason. Do I think the Niners will do a whole lot in the postseason? They've just had too many injuries. No, I don't think so. Could they could they contend for in that wild card range of 5 or 6, or maybe win the NFC West potentially? That's still in the realm of possibility, but they have to beat the Panthers this week, because if they lose the tiebreaker in this scenario, that could be really, really bad as well too.
They're a first round of the playoffs team, and that's not an insult given how much they lost, but they can't generate a pass rush. We saw the Rams big brother them last week, and I think even though they beat the Rams earlier in that Thursday night game, this was different. They had some players on defense then. They have none now. They didn't generate a pass rush at all against Jacoby Brissett. There's a reason why Brissett was connected on 47 passes. You're going to see the better teams be able to exploit that. I think they run into good teams and they lose. They beat bad teams, and fortunately for them, they have a lot of bad teams on their schedule. Move on. You know what? I'm going to make a call here. I know people are dying to hear your takes on Cowboys, Raiders, Dolphins-Commanders, Texans-Titans, and Trey Lance time down with the Chargers. But I've got a radio hit coming up here, so we have to call it at some point in time. I'm going to give you one. You give me one nugget from each of these games. Rapid fire time. You ready, Joe? Cowboys, Raiders. Let's go.
Genty needs to get more passing volume to be good for his late first-round draft capital. I do think that happens if the Raiders just choose to commit to that. But Cowboys offense did what they're supposed to do against a bad team. Really tough opposing schedule. I actually think I would trade Dak Prescott if possible. And I would even look if I can get a 2-for-1 that helps my team rest of season for CeeDee Lamb. With this schedule upcoming, I don't even mind moving CeeDee Lamb for what feels like an appropriate package for him too.
Hola, amigos. We got the Madrid game. Commanders, Dolphins. Ay, caramba.
Yeah, backfield of the Commanders seems to be seated over to Chris Rodriguez. We'll have to see. They're, of course, on bye this week. The Corey Krosky-Merritt 7th-round hype train seems to finally be done. Thank God for that. I know that was exhausting for you and I have to do that coverage throughout all of August. I don't like either of these teams. I think Jalen Waddle, actually, if you look at our rest of season schedule tool, is one of the more preferred players to go ahead and target. I think you can sneakily get him in trades and we'll get a guaranteed volume, but he's a wide receiver too, even against the best team, like best matchups for fantasy. And I don't know how much you want to give up draft asset wise in dynasty leagues or even redraft to get Waddle either.
Devon Achane is one of the cornerstones to my Scott Fishbowl team, and playoffs begin this week, and I won't have him. So fun times there. Hopefully I can get through to the following round because I want the rest of his schedule. Texans, Titans.
Last second field goal. Fairbairn is now back for the Texans. That matters for Thursday. Obviously, Fairbairn was one of the leading fantasy kickers when he was available. No CJ Stroud against the Bills here on Thursday as well, too. Woody Marks should do just fine against the Bills defense. I think Woody Marks is very clearly the best running back on that team. I saw a report early about Joe Mixon still having no idea if he's returning. It's so funny that we were doing that back in August, like what's going to be Mixon's status and how we haven't even talked about that now in mid-November. It's just been assumed he won't play the rest of the year. Such a weird thing that we'll never really learn about. But gross game. AFC South is gross. I'm fine moving on.
Yeah, they didn't ever really say what was going on with that foot injury there and how it happened or anything. I think there's some animus there, but I can't really get onto it. Trey Lance saw action, and that's never a good thing if you're a Chargers fan, unless you're up by like 40 or something there. And they were not up by 40. They had an intentional grounding play on their very first play, penalty on their very first play. That I think encapsulates what happened. No, Herbert was constantly rushed. They couldn't run. Kamani Vidal got hurt. Thank God they're on bye this week.
Let's do this. We haven't had a chance to talk about now. I've been on the show the past 2 Tuesdays with you. It's been awesome to be able to talk about NFL football with you, Jeff. But congratulations to Nick and his wife for having their first kid. Obviously, an adjustment as a parent of a 4-year-old right now. I get how that works, and really happy for Nick and his family, and happy that the daughter gets to see a Jags win for the first time in her life as well too. I don't know how many of those will be coming on in the Jags future here to come, but I'm glad that Whalen family gets a happy first Sunday as they're dealing with new spots in life, and really happy for them, of course, just in life. I think it's a great spot to be in. Again, shout outs to the Whalen family.
Yeah, and they didn't have to see the collapse against the Texans the week before, too. So Lottie only knows what W's. So there no L's for Lottie there. We'll call her Waddy instead. All right. That's going to wrap up today's podcast. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, either if you were streaming live or on podcast there. Nick will be back at us next Tuesday, most likely. Joe and I, we've had fun the last 2 Tuesdays doing it together. Appreciate you, Joe. Appreciate everybody for joining in on the live stream as well. Take care.